Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We are live. Let's listen to some music. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Be back in 2 minutes. Enjoy Temple Strike and a view of the sun for the last 48 hours at 304 angstroms. All right, no screwing around. We got massive filamentary activity here on the northwest limb. And we are talking about the local yellow dwarf, folks, for all you new viewers. And speaking of which, thank you, everybody, for viewing our videos yesterday. It's the first time we've had over 1,000 views on a video in quite a while. We really appreciate it. We're looking at the colored magnetogram here. And there's sunspot 2738. Now, this umbra is in the process of degrading right now. And if you see that light area around the outside there, that's degradation happening. So the umbra that was behind this looks like it has now evaporated.
I think there's something weird going on.
Don't worry, folks. There's nothing weird going on.
I think there's something weird going on.
So you see there's no trailing sunspot group anymore. We only have this split umbra now. So sunspot 2738 is degrading as it was yesterday. I made a custom movie here on helioviewer.org for you. This is the last 24 hours and 171 angstroms. We don't usually show this, but it's pretty good. Always looking for new visual aids for our viewers. Next, we'll go to the real-time solar wind. So here we have the last 24 hours of solar wind here, and we see a pretty steady phi angle there up around the 315 mark, 5.62 proton per cubic centimeter solar wind density. And we see the BZ has just recently gone into positive territory there, and the BT is fairly stable around 5, and solar wind speed a fairly average and not noteworthy 435 kilometers per second. Next, we've got the gong too, so let's check that out. Keep in mind this data is 1 hour and 15 minutes old. And I forgot to get out Epic Pen, so bear with me one moment. We see huge undulations in the North Pole portion of the current sheet here, pictured in green, and that's caused by the magnetic interactions with that sunspot. Now, as it evaporates, we're going to see a magnetometer spike here as we cross the current sheet in this area. We're talking about this polarity switch. It's just a current sheet polarity switch, folks. Nothing to get concerned about. And the switchover isn't going to be extreme, but unfortunately, the GOES magnetometers are not working the way we would like. 10.7 centimeter radial flux has dropped down to 78, which is still above predicted values, and that's a good thing. Solar minima are bad for us, and we're seeing the effects of it all around the world right now. Effects such as the loss of 40% of U.S. grain stores. Here's a great aurora photo. Wow, that is a nice one. Check it out. From yesterday. And this odd soundscape that we're listening to is available nowhere, and it's called frozen turkey stock. So if you make a Thanksgiving turkey, freeze your stock and make some soup later. Yes, we provide cooking tips also on this channel. Now let's head to spaceweathernews.com and let's make sure this thing's refreshed. All right. It looked like it loaded, but it's nice to make sure. Now we see the B-class flares are kind of simmering down a little bit here, as we'd expect from a degrading sunspot. Magnetometer data is totally jacked up. The GOES 15 is reading off the top of the scale here, and the 14 is reading totally normal now. This is the normal kind of scale you would expect, and in fact, this is the kind of thing you would see from a current sheet crossing. Let me draw that better. These kind of spikes right here, but frankly, I wouldn't trust any of this data right now. I'm not sure what's going on with the GOES magnetometers. If anybody would like to email NASA, please do so. Let us know of your contacts in the comments. KP index is now at 3, which is a good level. Not too low, not too high. Here are the signets. This is going to show you the solar wind spiral as well as the Parker Solar Probe, which is that fast mover near the sun. Not only is it a fast mover, it's the fastest mover mankind has ever built, as far as we know. Traveling at about 213,000 miles per hour near its perihelion, we are waiting for data on the Parker Solar Probe, and we are super excited about it. There is your electron flux and proton flux. Charging hazards are slim to none. Here's your F2 ionosphere layer. Looking pretty normal there. A little on the discharge side, in my opinion. If you disagree, please leave a comment. All right, there's your auroral forecast, Borealis, Australis. And here's your sunspot number progression, your AP index progression, your relativistic electron fluence, daily solar wind from solin.info. There are your cycle comparisons. And here's cycle 24. You are here. Just coming off of a solar minimum, possibly descending into a deeper solar minimum, but most likely just in the process of coming off of one. That doesn't help the fact that there's massive blizzards happening in the US after record snowfall. In fact, let's take one moment to go to a tab that I had not prepared to even go to. Let's head to Global Cryosphere Watch just for one moment, because I want to show you one graphic here that you may not be aware of. If you think you're experiencing If you think you're experiencing a late spring this year, like you did last year, it's because of this. Look at the historic snow coverage. And it looks like they're now showing us historic snow melt also. So this is not priced into the US stock market, viewers, and this is not investment advice. However, there are some pretty serious folks who think that the economy is a little bit inflated bubble. We're living in an inflated bubble economy. Don't let them tell you that it's great, because when a country loses 40% of its grain stores, that hurts its economy and causes food prices to rise, which is why we're growing our own inside and taking the advice of smart people like David Moriello and Christian Westbrook and David Devine. All right, let's move on here, because this particular video has the capability of becoming very lengthy, and we don't want that. Let's go to the planetstoday.com, and that is not your planetary locations whatsoever. This looks like a Velikovsky novel. The sun is not there. Mercury better not be there, because that's on Earth's orbit. And Venus, I don't know. Let's hope the solar system doesn't look like that, folks. It might cause some astronomy textbooks to be rewritten, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. All right. Well, that's not working, so let's try to reload that. There we go. Look at that. Anyway, I just wanted to note for new viewers that stereo A is located here, and stereo B, which barely works due to a hardware anomaly in 2014, is located approximately there. This gives us a full view of the sun, namely the part that's not facing the Earth. Here's where the planets are now. Here's where they'll be in 7 days. We're going to advance it. If you're interested in that website, it is theplanetstoday.com. And I'm going to fast forward this song and switch tracks, because I don't know what this is. It sounds a little too weird, even for our audience.
Yes, this is Al Gore, and no matter how many lawyers I get and how much I cry and complain about all kinds of chats, I will get elected and take your free right to bear arms away.
Let me just pause that a second. This is the kind of answering machine messages and voicemails that my friends and I leave to each other. It's like an ongoing contest. So if you think we're weird, you don't even know the half of it.
So we can protect our children while criminals have semi-automatic weapons. I love all the Americans.
That was a real voicemail. It's like a competition. It's like an art form. Leave your friend a crazy voicemail today and perfect your skills. All right. Anyway, there was Alaska C2. We're going to move on to the magnetosphere movies here, because I have about 97 tabs open and I'm trying to get through them and get on with my life here. I'm not a space weather forecasting factory, folks. I actually do other stuff, believe it or not. So we see quite a low pressure here in the magneto-hydrodynamics of the situation occurring above your head and all around you. Let's look at ground perturbations here, courtesy of the University of Michigan. And we are blanked. Could be bandwidth. It's not going to load. Oh, there we go. All right. Yes. Here are the ground perturbations. Not expecting to see anything too extreme here. I'm not making any forecasts, because to quote Jordan Peterson, one of the things I strive to avoid is saying something stupid. Perhaps my credibility is not quite as high as Jordan Peterson's yet, but nonetheless, don't say something stupid, folks. It may be more difficult than you think. Here are geospace perturbations across the globe. And for you new viewers out there, we have a North Pole here and a North Pole here, which makes your compass point here at Svalbard or so. And the South Pole is migrating like this toward Western Australia, or perhaps toward Eastern India if it gets all the way up to here. And let's hope it doesn't, because the effects would be, let's say, less than optimal. We're going to ignore cosmic rays today. Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. Let's look at the visible light. This is what you would see if you had a really, really good backyard telescope, folks. And you're going to see the trailing umbra collapse. And you're going to see that sunspot start to split, actually. It looks like it's splitting into two. So that's something to keep an eye on throughout the day if you're interested in. And again, the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is now at 78. So we dropped down one level. And we actually see pretty high electron content here. Let's look at the total electron content forecast.
What's up? It's me. I really play and unplay to actually the ALT.
He only fay as hey a onplay to HK the ALT. Let's see you transcribe that, Google. Anyway, the reason we watched the electron content, folks, is because of GPS errors mainly, also satellite drag, and anything involving communication with things on the other side of the ionosphere, because there are a lot of electrons in between you and there, and that's what solar protons are interacting with when they hit the planet at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Let's move on. 24 hours of earthquakes. We're going to fly through this so we don't spend the rest of our lives making this video. And you don't spend the rest of your lives watching it. We got a big quake. Oh, man. Check it out. 6.1 on Japan. Let me turn this music down a little bit, as it is like 4:30 in the morning. I need a soundproof room, folks. The studio is getting crazier and crazier. All right, let's 24 hours. You see a 4.4 in Indonesia. And this track's called Wind Chime Madness, by the way. It is available on our SoundCloud, a link which will be featured in the description of the video soon. We see a 4.6 in Peru at a depth of 226 kilometers. A 4.7 off of Oregon, the largest one that I recall ever seeing there. So that could be a predecessor to a larger quake, but I don't think so, as it is at the surface. Here's a 4.7 in India. Series of other small quakes. There's a 4.3 in Chile at depth. So they should remain on alert for a larger quake at the surface. Here's a 4.0 in Iran. Here's a 4.9 in India at the same location. Let's check it out. And right near a plate boundary there, looks like some seamounts. Could be underwater volcanoes. Who knows? Moving on. And when I say moving on, I mean going back, because this thing will lose your place real quick. I try to keep this tab open all the time so I don't have to mess with it. All right, there we go. And I'm going to just have to hit refresh here because I don't know what I'm looking at anymore. It's a pretty good site regardless. I don't hate it. All right. So 5.1 in India, 4.9 in India, 4.6 in the Pacific Antarctic Ridge, very far south. And there's a 6.1 in Japan. And there's the location of that. Probably not large enough to generate a tsunami, but let's look anyway. Not even on the site. So there is your earthquake update. Let's look at U.S. weather as it is getting hammered. Hammered. And look at that line of snow. That is a legit blizzard. It is absolutely stagnant, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. We hope everybody's okay out there. We hope everybody has disaster plans, as there are probably power outages in places like southern Minnesota, Iowa, southern Wisconsin, southeastern South Dakota. They had massive icing there earlier this morning. Here's a water vapor map. All right, here's the water vapor map for the country. This will give you a little better idea of how stuff is moving around. And for those of you who are not skilled at meteorology, what I would note for you folks is one thing. So take one moment to check this out. I'm going to give you a little meteorology tip that you may not know. Dry air is more massive than wet air. Okay? So for instance, this air down here is so dry that it will have the capacity to push other air out of its way. That's happening here also. Because it's more massive, it kind of takes precedent in the atmosphere. And the reason we look at water vapor maps is because we want to be able to see what's going on in the upper atmosphere. So you can see here, essentially, an arm of dry air is causing this massive compression over Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa right now. And that's how to read the map. So when you see Doppler radar and you can't figure out what's going to happen, break out the water vapor map. You'll be glad you did. You'll be able to predict the weather for your friends and impress people and tell them when to have the picnic.
Yeah, Mr. Vice.
Uh-oh. We got another voicemail coming in.
This is the Secret Service calling on behalf of Catherine Around. And we hear that you've been using some seed samples for your own personal advantage. If you'd like to give me a call at 764, and we'd be happy, more than glad to discuss this with you. Good day.
Here's another water vapor map here. This is the NASA GOES. And it'll show you a little more resolution. If you use this, you can zoom in on your location. I'll show you the compression zone here. And you're going to see crazy compression right before your very eyes, folks. All those streamers, those are electromagnetic in nature, and they are based on Hall currents. Hall currents. If you're not familiar with the Hall effect, it's what causes your weather to do what it does. You see all these lines that are perpendicular to the mode of travel of this water vapor? See those streamers? That's the Hall effect, folks. If you're not familiar, I can't help you. But continue to watch the videos because you'll eventually understand through osmosis. Let's check out volcanoes. As we saw a little uptick yesterday, let's see if it continues. Shivaluch with a 13,000-foot plume. That's back on the list. and a 34,000 foot plume yesterday. Bromo, 10,000 foot ash plume there. Don't fly your homemade helicopter over that. You will become human magma. Dacono, 7,000 foot plume there. Popocatépetl, remnant ash visible. Fuego, what does this mean? It looks like emissions have dissipated at Fuego. Revenador continues to emit. Sabancaya, a strong puff, producing a 27,000 foot plume. Please don't pole vault over that. And there's a volcano update. Let's move on because there are still so many tabs open. It's crazy. We're going to look at the Stereo A Core 2 Space Weather Beacon as quickly as possible. We're going to distort this to give you the maximum resolution. Not the maximum resolution, the maximum viewing capability. So we showed you earlier in the video where Stereo A is located. And there's the view. We don't see any kind of coronal mass ejections or anything. There's one funky looking frame here. I'm going to see if I can get it. There it is. That's an odd frame. Looks like a cosmic ray flux, folks. Or it could be protons also. You never know. Let's keep this thing going. And I have a giant word Google on my screen right now, and for that, we are not thanking you. If you're on social media, head to minds.com/smashomash and get yourself an account. Minds.com will not censor you or track you or spy on you or anything like that, and all the code is open source. We're there. You should be too. And we don't even have our latest video there yet. Ha ha ha. So, very busy operation going on here, folks. And we do appreciate every bit, every minute of your viewing. And we're going to skip null school. We're going to skip the Event Horizon Telescope as we covered this stuff pretty in depth yesterday. And we're not going to leave any links to the Max Planck Institute for Radio Astronomy, although it's a good one.
What do you mean? What's wrong with us?
Well, we're fine. But I've been thinking we should watch the outside.
That's stupid. People don't worry about.
Here's a clip from the game Thief, the Dark Project. Please don't sue me,
Oh.
as I've talked over part of the recording. So we are now looking at the Swift X-ray, the Swift Transient Bat Monitor Burst Alert Telescope, and we're looking at an object's radio emissions known as the Great Annihilator. And why is that? Because if you think radio astronomy is boring, I used to think it was boring in the 90s too. Now I don't. Anyway, here's the scaled map transient analysis for this object known as the Great Annihilator. What the heck is that? Well, the Great Annihilator is some crazy star, galactic core or something. I honestly don't know. I didn't really look it up. But there are links about to be in the description for this. The Neil Garrels Swift Observatory. And this thing keeps track of a lot of stuff. For instance, Cygnus A. Let's start with Cygnus A. Now, why am I talking about Cygnus A? Because Cygnus A is the strongest radio source in the entire sky, second only to the sun. How far away is it? Well, it's about 600 million light years. Why is that relevant? For a lot of reasons. It could be some sort of progenitor to our whole galaxy. But all that stuff aside, Cygnus A is a massive radio galaxy, and I think I must have passed it. Oh, there it was. So Cygnus A, here's a transient analysis from Cygnus A. This gives us some insight into things like what's going on in the rest of the universe. You can only measure it with radio telescopes. You can't even get good images of this stuff without radio telescopes. So anyway, Cygnus A is this crazy radio galaxy, very far away. And it's got these giant radio jets. It's super interesting. We invite you to read about it. You will not be disappointed. Here's the galactic nucleus. And it's so strong that almost nothing is able to condense in these whole areas. And the majority of the mass in the galaxy that we can actually detect is in these jets, headed out like this. And it's only able to condense way out here because it's so energetic. I hope that makes sense. And I am now stuck. All right, let me get back to this. I wanted to show you Cygnus X3, one of the most important stars in the sky. I'm not sure if it's X-3. I think it's X-3. And Cygnus X3 is a massive radio source. We call it a high-mass X-ray binary, consisting of a Wolf-Rayet star and an even more massive orbiting object. And this thing, if you're not aware, is the brightest single object visible to the human eye. It's the tail of the swan Cygnus, and it's the star that Göbekli Tepe and the pyramids are oriented toward. Let's let that sink in. It's not towards Sagittarius, it's towards Cygnus, because of the precessional cycle. Now, look at the analysis of this thing. It always goes into a dormant state before going into a high energy state. Guess where we are right now? This particular star, known as Deneb, is the celestial North Pole at the other end of the precessional cycle. If you think that's a coincidence, then I probably can't help you. It might look like one object, but it's not. It's more like this. And this is an ultra high res image, and for that, we thank you. Anyway, massive object orbiting a Wolf-Rayet star. Deneb is a lot more important than you may realize. And we've got another voicemail coming in, so let's let you listen to this. It's on the album, by the way.
Lady off my ass, man. Give me a call. She's really annoying because I know she's not real. She's like a cybergenic love nut.
Anyway, here's a nice watermarked image of Deneb. Very nice. I love words on my lens flare. And yes, we've got copyrighted images, and I'm going to stop showing this stuff before this gets me sued or banned. All right, anyway, enough bloviating about stuff in the galaxy and stuff outside the galaxy, like this massive radio galaxy known as Cygnus A. If you don't know about it, read about it. Here's some more stuff about X3, and we will definitely leave this link in the description. Cygnus X3 and the cosmic ray question. If you don't know about Cygnus X3, please read this. I'm going to confiscate this image and keep that in my slideshow for viewers, because this is one of my favorite stars, and it's one of the most reliable cosmic ray sources in the whole galaxy. This thing is hitting you with, if you're in the northern hemisphere, this system has hit you with protons. Let me say that again. If you're in the northern hemisphere, this thing has most assuredly fired protons that have gone through your body. If you think I'm BSing, read the article. It's serious. And it's weird. And if it's freaking you out, and if you need a vacation for meditation, take a 10-day Vipassana pursuit. They're free. These people do this to benefit mankind. Kind of like the way I make these videos. Just click on your continent. And if you want to go on a 10-day silence meditation retreat, they will hook you up. I'm in the US. And the closest one to me is New York. And what they do is they go to, they'll bus you to Fishkill, New York. That's the 10-day course. So yeah, if you need a vacation and you can't afford one and you want to do some meditation, which I highly recommend, check it out. Vipassana medication. Meditation is medication, folks. We can't leave links to everything because this is taking way too long. We had some requests yesterday for a real photograph of the Earth from space, so I decided to bring up the Himawari 8, which is a satellite that's been placed very far from the Earth to photograph it in its entirety. If you think this is fake, go look at all the satellite data spots and note how the clouds line up exactly. If somebody's drawn that on there, they are spending an awful lot of time. Here's another link we're going to leave in the description, velikovsky.info. Now let's do a little science history here. Copernicus was considered a radical. Galileo was considered a radical. Velikovsky was considered a radical. Now, would you consider Galileo a crank at this point? Would you consider Robitaille a crank? Would you consider Anthony Peratt a crank? Anyway, here's the Velikovsky Encyclopedia available online. And yeah, the books are there. Go read them. I'm sure I don't believe all of his theories. You might not either. Read them anyway. Science is not a consensus, folks. Science is not a consensus. Here's an old article. A landing strip for alien spacecraft, ? Or an alien monument, ? Transcribe that, Google. Transcribe it. And where's the photo? Let's just hit refresh. The reason I'm showing you this is because, first of all, this is just an art project in the Egyptian desert. So there's no need to freak out about it. And what I would note is that this is actually 2 spiral arms. This is somebody that understands the Birkeland current. You see that? That's a dimple. You see that? That's a cone. This is a perfect drawing of a Birkeland current. Here's the one going out, and here's the one going in. Convex versus concave. A brilliant art project in Egypt. It's been confounding users on Google Maps. And I thought I'd show it to you as Google showed it to me today on a slideshow. So I'm not sure if you can see it on Google Maps yet. These things may have all been filled in by sand, and that's part of the project. If you look at a current photo, for sure, this lake in the center has since dried up. It's not because of carbon dioxide. Let's skip this song because it's a little bit too crazy. Now, if you're not familiar with, we got another answering machine message coming in. Check this one out.
This is Ashiko from Japan. I work for the Sonic Corporation. I have a brand new Pokemon acid hit. Give me a call for a big deal.
All right, yeah, just email us at smashomash@gmail.com if you're interested in his free Pokemon acid hits. Just kidding, folks. So if you're not familiar with the Watchers, check out watchers.news. Great site, covers a lot of the same stuff we do. And we're not a collaborator yet, but we're considering the options. We have a big eruption at Shivaluch. There's that 33,000-foot plume. And I thought there was something I wanted to show you. Basically, we just have disasters all around. 2 months worth of rain in 9 hours in Rio de Janeiro. Crazy blizzard on April 11th, intensifying over the central U.S., north central U.S. Baseball-size hail hits Texas. Major floods in Crete. Series of Pacific storms to impact the West and severe storm for the Gulf states. And national emergency declared in South America and South Korea as wildfires destroy structures. So we're talking about some serious stuff here, folks. And let's play another song. If you're not familiar with Peter Schiff, I recommend you get familiar. Watch his latest video. He is trying to protect people against the government. Because if you're using US dollars or any dollars in most major countries, that's fiat money. And you are being subjected to a hidden tax that you may not know about. It's called inflation. Inflation is a tax imposed on you. Inflation is a tax imposed on you by a government in order to basically allow the government to do whatever it wants. Inflation is what crashed the Greek Empire. And it's always the standard thing. Empires collapse because they waste their money on war, they inflate their currency, and they destroy their own reputation as a result. So I highly recommend you subscribe to Peter Schiff, watch his economics videos. He is a supply-side Austrian economist. And if you don't understand what that is, I suggest you find out. We're a huge, huge critic of the Federal Reserve, as the free market should be controlling the interest on loans and not a banking cartel. Your grocers are not allowed to control the price of apples, and banks should not be allowed to control the price of loans. That should be illegal. We should have a real market on money. If you're in the US dollar, I recommend getting out some of it immediately and cashing in on commodities because of those losses in the grain supply that I referred to. When a country loses 40% of its grain supply, it needs to order more. So anyway, Peter Schiff Show. There's a whole bunch of podcasts in different locations. Check it out. Schiffradio.com. He's got a book about the real crash. And the reason that the stock market is so high right now is because of cheap money. The reason it's so high is because the Fed lended money for a decade at a 0% interest rate practically. And companies like, let's just say tech giants especially, are paying people in stock options instead of salaries because of what it does to their bottom line. And we're not going to get into it. We're not going to get into the weeds any deeper than that. I highly, highly recommend you listen to what he says, as it's getting more important nowadays, and commodity prices are going to spike. If you don't believe me, ask me in a month what happened. I called the silver prices at their low at $14. If you don't believe it, go back, look when the low happened, and watch our videos. Eureka! Scientists photograph a massive radio source and don't understand what they're looking at for the first time. I'm going to have to save this image.
In the front yard, wondering where I put my turban. I don't know why I wear one of those.
That's me singing, by the way, folks. I am an actual singer, believe it or not. Just the good old smash, never meaning no harm. Here's your torus field that they took a photograph of. And I would note that there are photons coming out of here and here and here and here. There's nothing black about this, and we live in a universe of light. Black holes aren't real. Black holes are math in search of observations. If that freaks you out or destroys your paradigm of astronomy and cosmology, sorry. Classical cosmology destroyed my paradigm of astronomy and cosmology also, which is why I got out of college, because there's so much BS there. If you can't smell it, you may even have a degree in astrophysics. Let's leave you with an uplifting note. David LaPointe's video on the primer fields. Let's have a clip.
So let's take a look at how matter can be ejected by these bowl-shaped magnetic fields. So now I'm going to show you magnetic ejection utilizing the CERN ball.
And what he's talking about here are toroidal magnetic fields that are created by these bowl-shaped magnets. If you're not familiar with the David LaPointe videos, it is in our channels we endorse, or our channels that we subscribe to list. So if you go to youtube.com/smAsho/channels, you'll see these videos in there. And this right here is a perfect example of the destruction of dark energy, black holes, and dark matter. None of the three exist. Sorry.
So
if Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you're watching this, sorry, these three things don't exist. Gravity doesn't run the universe.
This one will shoot these magnets, ordinary magnets, about 25 to 30 feet across the room. If I have a large room, I don't have that big a room we're working in right now. So I'm just going to show you what I'll do. So pull it down here, and I'll just put it in through the bottom.
And by the way, this is a perfect representation of what happens at the sun at either of the Z fields, which would be the South Pole or North Pole. When matter is ejected out of the Z field, this is what's happening, not gravitational accretion.
Through the hole in the bottom. A little tricky. It doesn't really want to go in there. It's kind of against it. But then you can get it to where it's a balance point, where it doesn't take any energy. But once you push it past that balance point,
and that is how the Z field of the sun works. It has nothing to do with gravity. It has to do with electrical current and electromagnetism, which are kind of one and the same. Let's leave you with another uplifting note. It is that we live in a universe of light. So take it away, Dr. Robitaille. And hey, YouTube, please don't ban me.
The Sky Scholar. We have just finished discussing the solar spectrum, and perhaps.
All right, let me skip ahead here.
Our modern concept of the universe, commonly referred to as the Big Bang, was the idea of a Belgian priest, Father Georges Lemaitre, in 1927. Little did he know at the time that he had given birth to a universe of darkness. Pius XII loved the idea of the Big Bang, which he saw as the primordial creative event. He referred to it as fiat lux, let there be light.
Which seems pretty uplifting, right? What about dark matter and black holes?
But if he had known that the Big Bang would result in a universe of darkness, perhaps he would have tempered his enthusiasm. Edwin Hubble is credited for linking the recessional velocities of galaxies with distance, as you can learn in this paper.
And by the way, that's super interesting also, folks, because there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how redshift and blue shift work. Let's give you one more clip here. Hope that we don't get banned and close this video out, because there's a lot of stuff to do. A lot of stuff. Here's another clip. I don't know what he's going to say, but let's just give another clip to Dr. Robitaille, a real Sky Scholar.
Chicago introduced the concept of dark energy to help account for the apparent acceleration of the expansion of the universe.
Anyway, folks, you live in a universe of light. not of dark matter, dark energy, and black holes. Those things are not real, and there's no observational evidence to back them up. People of the light, get on your bikes and go ride them. All right. Let's do a zoom in of sunspot 2738. Get to the chat and close this thing out before we are old and gray. I don't know what happened there, but that's not what I was going for at all. In fact, let's do a custom view here. We'll show you just today's activity from 0 hour until 9:15 UT. And we'll use the I'm at a loss. My brain shut down there. The orange intensity gram. And we'll give you a nice close-up of that sunspot to see what it's done today, if it's splitting or reforming, etc. And we'll play some more music. All right, I'm just going to grab the chat real quick, so just bear with me. Now's the time for any questions, comments, hate mail, whatever you want to send. Send it through now, folks, because we are almost out of here. Comments, hate mail, whatever you want to send. All right. All right, we got a lot of people viewing. Welcome, Harry and Kalo Jan and Das Velo and Eden Scott, a bunch of regular viewers, Saturn Rainbows. Cheers, guys. Cheers. Your wife is full of hot air while she's still made out of condensed matter. She's not a ball of gaseous plasma, and neither is the sun. Oh, boy. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. We really appreciate it. Yesterday, we had the first 1,000 plus view video that we've had in quite a while. So, by the way, if anybody wants to speak to me behind the scenes, send an email to smAsho@gmail.com. We appreciate anybody's input. And, yeah, send us an email. Also, if you're viewing, leave a comment and shout out your location. Global recession by the end of the year. It could be. I mean, there's significant food problems everywhere. And in some other news that you may not have heard, since I didn't tell anybody, I started growing a garbanzo bean plant from dried up garbanzo beans in a Goya bag. Okay? I sprouted the beans, and I have a plant growing downstairs. So, I mean, how's that for a little bit of hope for you? How many bags of beans you got, folks? How many plants can you grow from those bags of beans? Is it enough? Do you have one bag of beans? I mean, it's crazy. I have a plant growing from a chickpea from a dried bag of Goya off the shelf in the grocery store. And we're gonna feature it in a later video, but all right, what do we have here? Retire the debt, move back to gold, and pay off the retired debt over the next 50 years. That's a theory. Gold standard you're talking about? I think what you need is not necessarily a gold standard, but you need an anything standard. It could be gold, silver, copper. It could be real estate if you want to get real crazy with it. Because consider how much real estate is really worth. It's really worth so much. It's called real estate. Anyway, real estate will never lose its value entirely. So that's another thing. But yeah, silver. You may want to look into silver. Speaking of gold,
get some. Get some. You're gonna have to get some. You're gonna have to go and get some. Go and get some.
Yes, you're right. Who could believe in Big Bang when you need big foreplay? Every woman knows that exactly. All right, we are out of here, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be doing it all again tomorrow, possibly even later today. So may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins. It'll never be now again. Remember, when you're staring at sunspot 2738, don't drink it. If you drink, stare at the sunspot anyway. Just don't drive.